Well, good afternoon, and it's wonderful to welcome back to Linacre, although you seem never to have gone away, Ivana, Professor Ivana Drobnjak, who is Professor of Computational Healthcare in the Department of Computer Sciences at the University College London. But Ivana, most of your life surely has been here at Linacre.
Yes, I think so.
Remind me, when were you here?
So I arrived in 2000 and freshly off the boat, yeah. So I was up to that point just living in Serbia. I'm originally from Serbia. And that was kind of my first time living outside.
Yeah.
And it was Oxford and Linacre. And from day one, I think it became my home.
Excellent. Now, tell me if this is a sensitivity, but I think where you grew up, the country was called originally Yugoslavia, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that's quite an important part of your story, because actually a lot of your university career coincided with a very traumatic period for your fellow countrymen.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood and where you grew up.
So I was born in a very small town called Prijepolje, which is very hard to pronounce even for people who live in Serbia. So, which had 20,000 people. So that's actually 1/3 of UCL where I work now.
Yeah.
And it was a very kind of mountainous, beautiful place, lots of rivers. So I had a wonderful childhood. It was still what was Yugoslavia at the time. Very peaceful, beautiful country, and where kind of family life, but education, travel, holidays, skiing, swimming, and really it was just
your dad
beautiful.
was a maths teacher, is that right?
And no, he was a kind of a chemist, but
Okay.
he was mainly really manager of a really large factory. It was the largest factory in the town where I was born, and it was a textile factory.
Okay. Right.
So he was kind of progressed through the ranks from kind of a manager of a small team to then becoming the kind of general manager of the whole factory, which maybe employed 2,000 or 3,000 people, like 1/4 of the population.
Yeah.
So he was.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
he did work on maths with me.
Yes. And what about your mother? Was she?
So my mom is an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
She worked in a kind of as an accountant, head accountant in one like a printing press,
Okay.
kind of. Yeah.
So where does your passion for maths come from? Because already when you were at primary school, you were a mathematician, weren't you? Competing in competitions nationally. And
Yeah. So I think it just kind of happened. I think our school was really good and offered us lots of opportunity to do a lot of different things. So I actually kind of just enrolled in many of them. I was writing essays and competing in that, and chemistry and physics and English and maths. But maths I loved the most. And
do you remember what it was?
I loved it because I didn't like studying so much, like learning things by heart. I really hated that. And so I really was looking for something where I can just, with the minimum number of symbols and just kind of thinking and not really doing that much, kind of do things. And maths was perfect for that, because you could just kind of like sit there and think, and you put one formula, and that one formula could just speak a world. So that's kind of
the perfect subject for lazy
perfect.
genius.
It was really So it's kind of like, and then I turned out to be really good at it, and I was then started winning competitions. And then these competitions then took me outside of my little town, and I started traveling a lot and meeting other people. They opened so many different doors, and so I went to summer school, summer camps, and suddenly my whole world was kind of starting to expand beyond where I was. And it was really the mathematics that kind of opened all those kind of different doors for me.
Yeah. And was it an inspirational teacher or a fantastic school? What was it that triggered that?
So we had a brilliant school, the school called Vladimir Perić-Walter, which is like a national hero from the Second World War. And that school was really amazing. And actually lots of education in Yugoslavia was amazing. And the teachers were great. And for me, the maths teachers were so extremely supportive, so kind. And the minute they saw that there's a talent in me, they started encouraging it, harnessing it. They would like give me more extra problems. And then very soon I was kind of sitting at the back of the class doing other stuff while everybody was doing the
basic stuff at
the day-to-day maths. And then when the teacher would go, they would just be like, okay, Ivana, take over, and kind of, I'm gonna go now. And I think that also just reinforced and really made, and they used to travel with me to competitions. So
these competitions are quite unusual, but they were actually quite an important part of your childhood. So tell us a little bit more about this. These are sort of Olympiads in mathematics or computing.
So I think the way they were organized in Yugoslavia is you first had like a school level competition. Then if you get top kind of position in that, then you can pass to the regional level. And then if you pass regional, you go to the kind of republic level and then the country level. So at each different stage, you just progress, and you need to, I think, get gold or silver or bronze to be able to progress further. And so and each year these competitions existed, so lots of kids were taking part, and I guess I just kept winning in the maths things, and then I was just going to these different levels and ended up traveling a lot around the country and meeting other people.
And ultimately it was that took you away from home to a secondary school in Belgrade, is that right?
You've read about me.
I've done my homework.
You did your homework. Yes. So I then, it was, we've heard of that school, and my teachers heard of that school, and the teachers suggested to my parents that I should go to this school. It was a very special school called Mathematical Gymnasium, and it's actually #1 school for the number of Olympics winners in the world.
Right.
I think over 400.
Right.
So it's very famous in the area. It is just for kind of maths, computer sciences, and you have to be 14 to go there. In the whole of the kind of, it's a bit different system than here. So it's a little bit like in America. You go to primary school until 14, and then you go to secondary school. Yeah. So it was a secondary school from 14 to 18.
And was it a boarding school? Were you? Because it was a long way away from home.
It was 300 kilometers away. I still remember getting up at 4 a.m. To go on a train, and my dad would take me to the station. And I think every time I would leave Prijepolje, my town, at 4 a.m., it was just so dark outside. I was very little, and so I would be crying and looking at my dad at the station and moving away. But then as we are coming towards Belgrade, I would be so happy that the new and so excited about the new adventure.
So you coped really well with.
Very well.
And it helped you develop your own independence and management of your own studies.
I got my own checkbook when I was 14. I was very independent, independent. So there were no boarding school. There are no boarding schools in Serbia, but there is student accommodation which is associated with schools. So I was in one of those student accommodation for the first 2 years, where many other kids from other schools were also there. So we had there were teachers there who kind of looked after us, and I remember that we had to be back by 10 p.m. and then the doors kind of close.
It's remarkable, isn't it, when you think, whether that would be even remotely possible in modern society, that you could have 14-year-olds more or less living on their own away from home.
I don't know. When I look at my own children, and I can't actually imagine it. My own daughter is now 14, and there's no way I would let her go anywhere. So I think the times were different, and I was very independent, and I kind of really, really wanted to go, and I absolutely loved Belgrade and loved this new life and this new adventure.
And that led straight into more or less university just round the corner.
Yes.
University of Belgrade, a degree in pure maths.
Yes. So you know how when I was going to these competitions when I was in primary school, actually so many of those kids that I met and the teachers in the summer schools and in these competitions ended up being my teachers and friends in this new school. Right. In the mathematical university, because it's a similar, it was that kind of the whole bubble of maths. Yeah. And so we all kind of then went to maths university. So I was already, because in that school teachers half of them were from the university itself. Yeah. So they were like university professor teaching us from 14.
Yeah.
So I knew the professors already in advance. So I felt quite
comfortable with it.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
And progressed then into the...
Yeah. But it wasn't a comfortable time, was it? Because this was 1999, which, you know, everybody knows was when NATO bombed Belgrade.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your experience.
So the whole kind of 90s were really challenging. And, you know, already from 1996, so for the 1992, the kind of war started, and that was surreal. I mean, was I even 14 or 15 at that time? I mean, it was very hard to even think about it. It was kind of over the border, so we didn't like witness much of it, but we kind of knew it's happening. And but then in 1996, the whole kind of a lot of us, especially university students, and you know, half of the country were kind of rebelling against the government and Milosevic, and we were in the streets. I mean, in 1996, I spent months in the streets studying geometry. Sorry, that's how I studied, because, you know, the exams were going on, and so I was like, you know, with my geometry book, and spent 3 months in the streets, just kind of, they were like hundreds of thousands of people. So that was kind of...
So these were sort of sit-ins?
So these were like famous kind of student demonstrations.
Yeah.
And the marches, just a lot of students. We were just marching in the streets and sitting at the university, kind of just...
And that must have been quite a scary thing to be involved with at such a young age.
You know, actually, no, I don't feel... I didn't feel any fear in that stage. I was just feeling a lot of excitement in the air.
Yeah.
I think I was scared that I think that the government, I started like having bad dreams about, you know, kind of, the government was starting to be really kind of restrictive, and it was starting to be a bit scary, you know, in terms of what your opinions are and stuff, but not too much. I think for us, for students, it was just very exciting. I never felt scared in the demonstrations, and I just was carrying my flower and just kind of like I played lots of card games, and so that part was not scary. So that was exciting.
1999, when the bombing started, that must have been quite a difficult thing, because presumably you felt some sympathy with the NATO cause, but also the fact that this was destroying your home.
Yeah. That was very, very hard.
Yeah.
I think that I felt a lot of fear then during that period. I mean, because the bombs were quite real. I mean, there were like rockets passing by my building. I still remember like a sound of a rocket, like, this is very... And there was one rocket that fell 50 meters from my building.
Right.
And I actually remember that very well, because we have a flat on the top floor, and we were all gathered kind of, and, you know, this was already like halfway into, so we stopped going to the bunker. So, you know, the first 2 weeks we were all going to the bunkers, and it was terrifying, and then you're going to get used to it, and you know, it's like, you know, 9 p.m, there's like sirens, and some people go to the bunkers, some people just go to the clubs that they're bunkers that are now converted into, you know, like a drinking places. So the moms were like, okay, 9 p.m, guys, go now, and, you know, go have, you know, to a local pub that is just, you know, converted bunker. And I remember one night we rolled there, and then the planes were flying, and the one plane kind of just, they were like releasing these rockets, and we saw this rocket, and we were like, oh, look at that rocket, and then, oh no, that rocket like lost the color. We're like, oh no, that rocket is flying in this direction. So we kind of all started kind of scrambling down to like get to the bunker, and that's the one that kind of exploded 50 meters away from us. Right. And so people from that house just ran to our bunker. So that was, and then that same night there was actually an earthquake at 5 a.m. It was such a strong earthquake, and so I still remember that night very well.
Yeah.
It was very difficult.
Yeah, difficult to forget, I imagine.
Yeah. It was very. You know, that really teaches you to look at the world kind of different.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Did it change your worldview? Because there are not many 19, 20-year-olds who go through that sort of experience.
I think it does. Up to that point, you know, we always thought, you know, that the bad things always happen somewhere there, somewhere in some other places, that bad things can't happen to us. And a little bit like, everybody here, if nothing happens like that, you always think, oh, well, it's another country or it's another place, because the place where the troubles happens, but not so much like in your safe little place. So suddenly when that happened, you then realize, oh, no, this can happen everywhere.
Yeah.
And then you start to have a lot of sympathy for everybody around the world who's in a similar situation, and you start thinking, so what are the good, what are the solutions for situations, how could these things be addressed without having to kind of resort to violence? And it's just lots of very difficult questions, and but you develop just this understanding and this sympathy. And now when I see things happen in the world where there is bombing or war, it's just you just feel it very deeply.
It's very much easier to empathise, isn't it, when you had that personal experience of finding yourself in that situation. Yeah.
Yes, and we were like almost like we were very lucky in a way, because it was just bombing.
Yeah.
And the bombing, NATO was trying to be very targeting. So although there were mistakes and there were lots of people who died, but it was still targeted. It wasn't blanket bombing, which is kind of, I think, much worse situation,
Yeah, much less predictable.
And then you start looking at the differences like that, and you start thinking, that actually it's quite important how these things are done, so that, and it's.
So tell me about the end of the war and then your decision to come to the UK. Were they linked in any way?
Yes. So before I tell you that, I just want to tell you like that one thing that also like I'm not careful. Well, when saw this happening, we were seeing CNN news. I mean, this is what I think that what happens maybe now in difficult areas. People see other people in other places in the world which are like just going on with their normal life. I think that was probably the most surreal thing for me.
Yeah.
Seeing that, our life is, I'm living in constant state of fear, like for all this, and can't do anything else. Like, and then seeing somebody have a normal life and putting the two together, how me now, I can be here, we can be sitting and chatting, and there's people somewhere else who are suffering.
Yeah.
I think I find my brain just finds that very hard to reconcile. Like, why am I not going somewhere and just helping somebody? Like, why can't? I think that's I don't have an answer to this.
But it's
that's the hard thing.
But that has helped shape your values, you think?
That has definitely helped shape me.
Yeah.
And because since then, I guess because of all the things that happen in my country, my brain is constantly thinking about what are the solutions and how should the world be designed in a way to avoid enormous suffering by people. And so I have so many different scenarios in my head of how I would do things. And so that's how I kind of direct myself, and the directions where I go were then from then on very much towards where can I be of use? What can I do to alleviate some of any kind of suffering? Where can I make the most impact? And I think that's how I find myself here.
Okay. Well, we're going to come on to the focus of your academic study shortly, but let's just bring you to Oxford.
Yes.
Tell us how that happened, and how did you end up at Linacre?
So I knew when I finished my degree, it was in theoretical maths, that I knew I wanted to do applications, and I knew I wanted to go somewhere else. I was in my heart a traveler still at that time, and haven't yet settled. And I wanted to go to the best university. I knew I wanted to go to a place which would be exciting and challenging, and that I can learn a lot. And really, first decision was America or United Kingdom, because I knew it had to be English speaking. And I just thought that America would maybe not suit my personality at that time, and this was a long time ago. And the reason is, it's very hard actually to guess, and so I'm very competitive, and America is very competitive. And I thought, if I go the way I am there, I'll probably just burn out.
Okay, yeah.
It's interesting. That was kind of my thinking, and also I thought I might be too far from my parents.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, it was just Oxford or Cambridge. that's
Yeah.
and then I chose.
And you found
Oxford.
a master's course here that was in applied maths.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was quite a big change for you.
Yes, and I knew I wanted applied maths. I knew I wanted to do something. I just thought, okay, I want to do something hands-on. I want to do something and make a difference. And I didn't know yet what is that going to be. So I just thought, okay, from this kind of theoretical maths, I want to work with people and do something with the world. So how do you get from theoretical maths to that? That's kind of what I was planning to explore. So I applied for this amazing master's in applied and computational mathematics at Oxford, and that was just a really brilliant program, which was just kind of started a few years before that.
Yeah, that was at Okiam, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was at
Yeah.
Okiam.
Yeah.
And actually, one of my supervisors was David Galligan,
Yes. Okay.
who was one of your guests previously. And actually, the first thought was I thought I might do finance. How did that just looked kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But then when they were presenting projects, the professor came who presented a project on leukemia, and I just thought, oh wow, that's it.
Yeah.
This
is how I can make an impact.
This is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
I didn't even know at that point that you
Yeah.
can use mathematics for things like that.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Yeah. Okay. And Linacre?
Linacre, I think I was, we were all supposed to choose 3 colleges, and I had an inside tip because one of the professors at the course was also Professor Anders Sully.
Okay.
Who was a fellow at Linacre.
That's right. Yeah.
And he told me before I was to come.
Okay.
Because he was interviewing me, and he just gave me a tip that if you're applying, just put Linacre as your first choice.
Yeah.
So I did that.
Yeah. Okay. And tell me about your memories of arriving in the UK for the first time and coming to Oxford.
The first word I want to say was like flowers, green.
Yeah.
I was on that bus from the airport. First, even just landing, it was just like, wow, green, beautiful, like a garden. And then on the bus, I just didn't expect everything to be so beautiful and so green, full of flowers. I arrived in September, which is probably, and it was just one of those beautiful, sunny British Septembers. And so my accommodation was in Abraham Building, and it was just such a new building. We had a gym. I was like, oh my God, I have a gym. And that was for me like such luxury.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was in my room on the top of Abraham, and I was looking at the garden, and I saw a squirrel, and I was just calling my mom and saying, oh my God, there's a squirrel in my garden, and there's a sunshine. And so that was the first day, and then as I was walking through, I just kind of opened the door of the, where we eat. Sorry, how do you call that?
The dining hall.
Dining hall.
Yeah.
And I still remember the smell of the dining hall.
Yeah.
To this day, I still remember that smell, and it's still there, a little bit linger. It's a little bit less.
Yeah.
It's slightly changed since then, but I still remember the smell of the dining hall, and that was just, I just felt at home.
Yeah.
And even the people, like I said, in my literally first day, as we were walking up and down the stairs, I met Christina or Vanity.
Okay. Yeah.
And we just kind of looked at each other, started talking, and said, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
We're going to be best friends forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's true.
And we are.
Yeah.
So it all happened in the first 3 days. So I felt for the first time, I think, in my whole life, that I arrived home.
Yeah. Okay. And the Masters, you say, was inspirational. And that then led on to a PhD. How did that happen?
So the Masters was totally inspirational. I deep dive into leukemia, started really studying it, studying medicine, realized that to talk to people, to do anything, you need to learn the language. And so learning the language, medical language, and leukemia language, suddenly you think different, you start looking at the problem differently. So I started going to seminars and conferences, and I went to London to meet the biggest name in leukemia in Europe, and I created collaboration with him. but now, when I have my own MSc students, I'm thinking I was quite an advanced MSc student. I published 2 papers. I really jumped into it, and I learned a lot about medicine and about the immune system. But and then thought, okay, so I just want to continue the same similar direction, and so then the next year I kind of continued and worked with my supervisor Andrew Fowler on leukemia projects, and we had a collaborator also, Michael Mackey, who was a kind of a world-leading figure, and this was also amazing for me. As an MSc student, and you're working with like the world-leading figure in mathematical physiology, people whose we were solving Mackey equation.
Yeah.
And he was
there
working with me. So it was kind of wow.
Yeah.
And so I think that I knew I wanted to do a PhD. I totally knew that I wanted to be an academic. I mean, I knew I wanted to do research. I mean, I never really had to think about things. I think all of these things were just always kind of based on my feelings.
Yeah.
I was just kind of instinctually being led directions, and actually getting a scholarship for a PhD was challenging because I was overseas student.
Yeah.
And so there was a bit of waiting, and there was a bit of searching, and there was a challenging situation. And I had to kind of teach and earn money, and Terry, my very good friend, Terry Brentich, borrowed £3,000 to me from her own borrowed money from the American government. Sorry, but she said, you're really struggling, you're waiting for this. I'm going to borrow this money to you until you are sorted.
Yeah.
Linacre was so fantastic. They actually allowed me to pay the fees in installments. I had such a great support. The college.
Yeah.
I mean, I really can't.
Well, that's fantastic
put
to
it
hear
into
that
words.
Terry and the college were both able to help you get through that.
So much. I mean, there's so much belief in me. I was part of the family. It was like I was just walking around the college. I was feeling this is my, this like a house, and I knew everybody who worked in professional services, all the academics. I mean, it was just. Again, like it's really like home.
And in addition to holding down a really busy research career, you were also pretty competitive on the sporting front as well.
Oh yes, I was playing volleyball, and
you were captain of the university team.
I was captain of the university team, and that was amazing. We used to travel every weekend and go, and I felt like a kid again. I think after all those kind of years, which were kind of a bit hard, I think starting to study here made me feel like a kid again.
So you'd had to grow up very quickly, hadn't you, in your early teens?
I think so.
And then suddenly this was an opportunity to let your hair down a bit.
To let your hair. Yeah. So I was even like when I was looking for a PhD, I actually got offers from jobs, from like industry, but I rejected them because I thought no, this is exactly what I want. So at the end, when that offer came for a PhD and to be here, to be a student for many years, I thought, oh my God, it's like a dream.
Yeah.
What more?
And was the DPhil hard?
No. And I don't really find
absorbing, but not impossible.
Yeah,
difficult.
No. I just never. I think in my whole life, I don't think that There was one challenging year.
Yeah.
When I was an undergraduate student that I found difficult because, in terms of studying, because I was kind of for 1 year kind of just learning how to live the life, so I neglected the studying. So then I was like starting to struggle, so I had to come back to it. But in general, I found my DPhil wonderful. I enjoyed everything about it. I used to go weekends and evenings for fun. My team was amazing. I mean, it turned out to be one of the #1 groups in the world for neuroimaging. I mean, I was extraordinarily lucky.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that and the sorts of discoveries that you made, because it was a period in which you really were making some really important discoveries.
Yeah, so I was working on medical imaging, and I think one of my biggest kind of goals to try to make medical imaging kind of better, in terms of to remove kind of artifacts and noise in order for clinicians to be able to kind of analyze the images and learn more information about the brain from those images. So
these were at that stage very noisy images. And
very noisy
this is a way of cleaning them up so you can see the signal better.
Exactly. And especially because I was working in the field of functional MRI, which every little movement. So this is technique where we are trying to learn about the function of the brain, but in order to do that, we have to acquire many images very in quick succession, so that we can see whether some of the areas in the brain respond to some external stimulus. And so in order to do that, the images have to be acquired very quickly. And so even, and the person has to be really steadily kind of lying without moving at all, so that we can match the different pixels in these different images in the time series. And of course, people, especially elderly or children, are never like that. So motion artifacts were probably one of the most challenging things to deal with for this fMRI to be accepted. And I think the work that I was doing had to do a lot with actually addressing those. So I developed the MRI simulator, from solving some a block equations and Maxwell's equations on a brain and a moving object in a scanner full of kind of different magnetic fields. And then by doing that, we were able to kind of predict what these artifacts could do to images. And then in that process, if you can predict that in simulation, it means you understand them better, and then you can also try to remove them. And so I contributed then in this work for other software packages to be developed within FSL. And FSL is like the world-leading neuroimaging software. So many of the softwares in FSL are actually using this simulator. These images were used them to create better processing algorithms that are now used in Connectome project in America, or the BB Connectome here in UK, Biobank. So many different kind of big projects.
Now, before we move on, we have to talk about rowing, because that's how you and I got to know each other.
Yes.
And you rowed in the Linacre women's first boat?
I rowed because I was playing volleyball a lot, and we traveled a lot. So I started in the Linacre women's first boat, but after I think a year, I found it was too hard to actually be on the top game for volleyball and
rowing at the same time.
And to achieve that level of commitment for rowing. So I then switched to the women second boat. Then I was
5.
I was 5.
Bow side.
So sorry, I forgot the number. I should remember. I remember my volleyball number 10. So
I bet you can't remember who your coach was.
I do. There was Helen for a while, and before Helen, it was Dylan.
Could have been,
So I remember that. And I remember the team. And I loved rowing. I loved getting up early and being on the river.
Now, postdocs.
Postdoc. Yes.
So you finished in your PhD in good time. Lots of papers. One enormous paper, which if I think I was doing it again, I would probably do it as 2 or 3. But I did have 3 papers. And out of which one was enormous. And was there pressure at that stage then to think about going back to Serbia, where really there was, I guess your discipline was still quite fledgling, but you could have brought expertise to the country that tell me a little bit about that decision, the decision to stay in the UK.
I never really made a decision. I just came and I felt at home, and I was like, okay, that's it. I arrived. It never occurred to me. I think that I just thought, because from when the troubles in Serbia started, in Yugoslavia, I very quickly started thinking beyond feeling I belonged to a particular town, country, or a place. It was part of my history, but I didn't want to define myself in that way. So I just always felt like the level I wanted to be at is like child of the planet. And so I was thinking, where can I do the most impact for the planet?
Yeah.
And so Oxford, or like any kind of big university for me that where I can like feel that I can make big impact. For me, that was where I thought that's going to be my place.
Yeah.
And so I just I like adopted daughter, like in the same way my husband is British, so I feel like I'm adopted into his family. I feel adopted by Britain.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I belong to both countries, Serbia and Britain. So
yeah. Okay. Now, tell me a little bit about your postdoc career. And we have to fit Richard into that as well.
Oh yes.
How you end up married to a top barrister.
Oh yes. So we met at Oxford through Oxford friends at a wedding, and that was from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that day I just knew.
Mm-hmm.
It's again one of those things, like I said about my decisions. I mean, I don't really make decisions by thinking a lot, do I? I just kind of
things just happen.
I just go with it.
Go with the flow.
Yeah, I just kind of, okay, this is it. It feels right.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of, for me, that's so important.
Yeah.
That it feels right, and it just felt that's it. And so I at that point was doing a postdoc here at Oxford. I was also a junior research fellow at Pembroke College.
Okay.
I was also a stipendiary lecturer then at Pembroke. So I was kind of, going, developing my academic career, and wasn't at the time sure where I will be, here or. But I think when I met Richard, I think, given that he really was a kind of young and he's aspiring barrister, for him only London was the option.
Yeah.
So that's how I thought, okay, I'm going to move to London.
Let's go there. Yeah.
And
quite quickly you found a place at UCL.
Yes, it was very. I mean, again, it's one of those things that a friend, Tim Barris,
mm-hmm.
with whom I was working at FAMRU, and he heard of a position at UCL, and then he told me that there is this amazing scientist there, great guy,
mm-hmm.
Alexander, and he's looking for a postdoc, and so I just applied there.
Yeah, and that again caused a little bit of a change in the focus of your work.
Yes, that did change the focus. I mean, I was still kind of studying medical imaging, but then I started kind of expanding to diffusion MRI, because Danny's group was working very much on diffusion MRI. And diffusion MRI was all about kind of going kind of further into the kind of contrast that I created, where we're kind of looking at the kind of Brownian motion of water molecules,
mm-hmm.
and a little bit like in the axons, as these water molecules are kind of randomly moving about. What we know is that in the kind of constricted areas, those molecules are kind of more likely to kind of go with the axon rather than across. So this then allows us to almost like see, shapes and structures in the brain.
Right.
So you can almost like, it's a little bit like, when you're watching at the motorways from the sky, and in the middle of the night when the lights up of the cars.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
And you can just look, and you can exactly see where these motorways are, and you can actually take a ruler and measure the width, you can measure the length, you can start to see the density, and these parameters are exactly the kind of parameters we are measuring when we are then looking at these diffusion MRI images, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're looking at where these lights are shining up in our brain. They can light up the water molecules.
Okay.
And that was my next big project.
Next big project.
Yes.
Yeah. Now we're running out of time, but there are two really important things that I want to talk to you about before we finish. The second of those is your new focus on ethics and AI.
Okay. Yes.
But before we get to that, I want to hear a little bit about your experiences of being a mum and also a high-powered scientist, and how you made those two really important things in your life work together, because that's a real challenge.
Yes. Thank you. So I think after kind of diffusion MRI, my academic career at UCL was progressing, and I became I first got a fellowship from Linacre to kind of go deeper into that area of science, and then I became assistant professor and an associate professor. And then, 1 year I went on a sabbatical, and I kind of really looked at my work, and I thought I was starting to feel a little bit saturated with the whole kind of medical imaging field, my work, and I kind of started feeling that, I started like wanting to make an impact in the world, but I just kind of felt that I'm again kind of staying in a very, I'm kind of, publishing papers and, and kind of advising on kind of how this new structure scanners, could be created, but I still kind of felt a lack of more immediate impact.
Yeah.
And I think that sabbatical year was so important to me because I kind of just decided to kind of just change my thinking a little, kind of open up and see, what can I do? I mean, I literally walked into a clinical room of a clinician. It was and I said, hi, my name is Ivana, and I'm a computer scientist, and what can I do to help you?
Right.
And that clinician, who is today still my collaborator, we said, oh, great. Well, we really need to work on this area, digital healthcare, because, we have so many different problems we could be solving with with computational techniques. And for example, when we operate on patients and we send them home, we have no idea what's happening with them. These are really heavy surgery. These are, post large cancer surgeries and lots of organs removed, but we don't know if the patients are doing well, if the patients are not doing well, and we have to kind of get them out of hospital after 6 days.
Yeah.
And so, can you maybe develop some kind of techniques that can kind of follow these patients at home?
Okay.
So
this is sort of remote monitoring of their condition that will feedback information that the clinician will be able to look at and say, okay, all's going well.
All's going well.
Yeah.
Or, this patient needs to be looked at. And then we also expanded and started looking at AI techniques to analyze the data.
Yeah.
And in general, I started expanding.
So this really is quite a shift in the sorts of things that you're doing. You're using the same mathematical techniques, but actually applying to a very different problem.
To a very different problem, yes.
This is more management, really, rather than...
Well, management is one part of it. I think there's so many different kind of things to consider. So one is to develop the techniques, the technology that can actually do that, and that can kind of connect with hospital systems and connect with and address and answer the questions they are interested in.
Yeah.
Another one is the design of and creation of the AI models that can analyze the data, because right now there are no AI models that can actually do that. Right. Third one is design. Why would patients want to engage? Why would clinicians want to engage? The design is so important right now in all these things. And then we get the regulation, ethics, management, and all these other things. So I had to learn a whole lot about all these different problems. Yeah. And actually, that became a big passion of mine. While I'm developing technology, how are we going to get this technology adopted by humans and by systems? And I think now with AI, that is really one of the biggest and most important challenges. Yeah. And that actually kind of took me into this direction with AI. Yeah. But in order for us to adopt AI systems and use AI, we really need to be able to trust AI. And I think that fundamentally comes down to trust, really.
Yeah, so can I ask you a question? Yeah. It's a very sort of hot topic in the news today about Mark Zuckerberg and Meta purchasing a very significant AI company in order to mop up a lot of the talent that there is around in parts of the US in AI. Are you concerned about the privatization of AI? Do you share the view that AI ought to be a public good, in a sense, rather like, for instance, particle physics is at CERN? It's done by the international community for the benefit of everyone, rather than for private profit and private benefit.
I think that it has to be some balance, I think, between the two. I think it's very important for it to be public good, but sometimes things that are solely in public good, it's very hard to find resources for them. Yeah. So it's very important to have a model in which whatever we are developing can have a sustainable way of getting the resources. And this is where industry is extremely helpful. Yeah. So I think we really need to work together.
Okay.
The governments and policymakers and the industry and academics on creating these things. And I think that there are, of course, right now, not everything is working perfect, but sometimes for things to evolve in the best way, it does take time. And it is important, I think, for some of the big companies to slow down a bit, so to wait for all of us others to kind of
catch up.
And to catch up. And some of the work that I've done that you mentioned earlier was really about, how do we make AI ethical? How do we reduce the bias? And this is the work I've been actually working with UNESCO, which is also very big important. UNESCO and United Nations are very important big kind of public bodies that can help.
Yeah. In the regulation.
In the regulation, because I think the regulation is important. Nothing over restrictive. I'm very much against extremes.
Yeah.
I think that there is optimization is really the most important way of doing things, and some gentle regulation I think is important. And I think that right now, for example, we are working on the sustainability and looking at how do we create AI that spends less energy. So I will be going to Geneva to the AI Summit for Good in July. That will be one of the main topics. Then I'll be presenting the work with UNESCO that we did on exactly this, the energy saving techniques for AI. And because there are techniques around that already developed, already out there, but it'd be great to kind of use them more and develop them more.
Yeah.
And I think that the energy could be reduced by even 90%.
Right.
So we did a large research study and found that by using quantization, for example, or smaller models, or prompt optimization, or we can really reduce a lot of the energy expenditures.
Yeah.
And so I'm very much for small models.
Yeah.
I really like small models.
Yeah. So Ivana, you're continuing to have this really high-powered research career.
Yeah.
But
well,
at home you've got two 14-year-olds and
yes. So one 14-year-old and twins of 12.
12. Okay. Tell me their names.
Nina, Marianne, and Alex.
Okay. And how do you manage to be both one of the world's leading researchers in the area of ethics and AI, and also a great family?
So I think I'm probably just kind of, I'm very interested in optimization, like I said. So that usually comes from kind of personal also life and motivations of how you lead your own life. So I think I kind of made a lot of mistakes, I think, in my life, because I get so energetic and so passionate about things. And there were times when I was younger, I would just kind of dive into things and was very reckless with my own energy. And because of that, I kind of started developing all these different medical conditions. And so when I got to my latest medical condition in 2018, I was by that point, because I have Crohn's disease, which I got in 2000.
Yeah.
And probably, combination of, stresses, like I said, of bombings and everything, and many other, and I think that was the first kind of sign, the body can't just can't do that. Yeah. When you suddenly get to a point in your life where your mind wants, but your body can't. Yeah. And so you start organizing your life already in a way that you can look after yourself.
Yeah, more strategically, so you can not use so much energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of very early on started doing that. So by the time I was giving birth to my kids, I was like, I was constantly reading and exploring this topic so that I can learn, so that I can manage. I think for me it was really a question of survival. And so I think at that point I was very good. Yeah. And I was like, expressing milk using, I had twins. I mean, I had to be a master of breastfeeding to achieve, to raise twins, while my oldest one was not yet 2 years old. Yeah. So I just became really good at these things. Yeah. And now I'm actually using this knowledge that I get to mentor all of the kind of next generations of my students, my PhD students, women and men. Yeah. So teaching them how to do that.
Top tip for a young parent who's also an academic. How do you survive?
How do you survive? Okay, so first I think it's really important to sleep is really important. I think if you don't sleep, you just can't do anything, and you just have to find a way to sleep. Yeah. And I think finding a support and finding things. So I think what I did was at work, I was always choosing things I'm good at. In certain periods of my time, of my life, where I was just so stretched thinly, I was selectively choosing things that I'm really good at and that I can do really quickly. And I was grabbing at those kind of positions at university. I was like, oh, chair of that, great, I can do that. You know, that admin post, you know, I'm like, some things just come naturally. Everybody has naturally things that come to them that they do. So that was one of my strategies. I was bringing babies to work. I was like doing meetings. I realized during the first maternity leave that you can't do research on a maternity leave. I mean, the first maternity leave was, I think, when I came back in the first week, I think I did as much research as those kind of like, 6 months that I was trying to do. So that's the one. So second one, the twins, I just did meetings.
Enjoyed it. Meetings, right.
They're excellent.
Right.
So you can't just enjoy it, because if you jump out of your projects, other people come into them, because the world is moving. So you need to do something to keep yourself relevant, even when you are. But there are really easy ways of doing this. So for example, I was keeping in touch meetings with my students, with my team, and they were absolute pleasure. Never felt any. They'd come, play with babies, we would discuss things, and then the mind could actually focus on work when you're actually directly talking to somebody. It was much easier than creative work, for example. And then you go back to the creative later on. So I also have, if you, for as much as you can afford, help in the house. I think that's really important. I with my husband, I think the minute we moved into the same house, I said we have to have some help, and so we do get somebody to come and help and clean, and because I think I would not be able to do that as well, and so I give parts of my salary for that, and then give up on some other stuff. But I really think that's important. And that was very important for me.
Super. Ivana, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me
for
this evening.
me.
I've really enjoyed it. And I've learned a lot about you that I didn't know, even though I thought I knew you really well. So, great. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.